The British Ruling Class and Project Hitler. In his book, Scarlet and the Beast, John Daniel reveals the little-known factors that gave rise to the Hitler phenomenon, ensuring his rise to power the Anschluss of Austria and the seizure of Czechoslovakia, events that eventually led to the outbreak of World War II. These factors can be roughly divided into three main groups: ideological, political, and financial. All of them, as the author demonstrates, can be traced back to the British ruling class. Ideological factors include the works of British writers about the superiority of the white race, which had a profound influence on Hitler's worldview, as well as the mystical and occult mythology created by English specialists, which instilled in Hitler a belief in his own messianic destiny. Who are the key figures and organizations involved in the ideological factor? First and foremost is the English writer Edward Bulwer Lytton, author of the novels Rienzi and Vril, which extolled the superiority of the Aryan race. His books had a dramatic impact on the formation of Hitler's messianic consciousness. The next figure is Lord Herbert Kitchener, who in 1909 initiated the future General Karl Haushofer into Tibetan mysteries. After the war, Haushofer taught Hitler geopolitics, assisted him in writing parts of Mein Kampf, and taught Tibetan mysticism to SS officers, creating the Vril Society for them. And finally, there's the London-based Masonic research lodge Quater Coronati, whose experts developed the Thule mythology, a synthesis of the legends of Atlantis and the Holy Grail. In 1918, this mythology formed the basis of the German occult Thule Society, which paved the way for the rise of Hitler. I'd like to add another key figure who influenced the formation of Hitler's worldview: Winston Churchill. On February 19, 1920, British Secretary of State for War Winston Churchill published an article in the London newspaper, the Illustrated Sunday Herald, accusing Jews of participating in a 150-year conspiracy against European civilization. Churchill's article gave the previously fringe theory of a Jewish conspiracy an official status and effectively legitimized its dissemination. 3 months later, inspired by Churchill's example, American industrialist Henry Ford began publishing the Protocols of the Elders of Zion in his newspaper, The Dearborn Independent. The political factors. They represent a complex game played by the British establishment, which skillfully maintained Hitler's illusion of the possibility of an alliance with Great Britain against the Communist Soviet Union and the so-called Jewish conspiracy that Churchill wrote about. The key elements of the political factor include the Cliveden set, Neville Chamberlain, and the Duke of Windsor. The Cliveden set was a pro-Nazi circle of British aristocrats whose goal was to direct German expansion eastward into conflict with the Soviet Union. The Cliveden set plan was implemented by Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, who pursued a policy of appeasement toward Hitler. Chamberlain first ceded Austria to Hitler and then Czechoslovakia. An important figure of the political factor was the Duke of Windsor, who openly sympathized with Hitler. As King Edward VIII, he actively promoted Nazism in British society, leading many members of the upper class to join the Nazi Party. Other members of the royal family also shared his sympathy for the Führer, fueling Hitler's belief in the possibility of a future union with Great Britain. And finally, financial factors. They were the ones that ensured Hitler's political rise and Germany's transformation into a military superpower. These factors include the Bank for International Settlements, created to finance the Third Reich's war machine, and Montague Norman, Director of the Bank of England and a member of the Board of Directors of the Bank for International Settlements. Between 1929 and 1933, Norman invested in Hitler's rise to power and then in the Third Reich's war machine. According to Russian historian Andrei Fursov, Montague Norman weighed perhaps as much on the scales of history as Roosevelt, Churchill, Hitler, and Mussolini combined. To sum it up, John Daniel writes, "In retrospect, it seems inevitable that the British ruling class would have to find or create, if not Adolf Hitler, then someone like him. It is this endeavor that we call Project Hitler." As a side note, It should be noted that the main theme of John Daniel's book is the confrontation between English and French Freemasonry. For this reason, the author devotes particular attention to the Masonic connections of the characters. While not denying the significance of the Masonic factor, it's worth noting that by the early 20th century, Freemasonry had largely lost its status as a leading supranational force, giving way to new structures such as the Milner Group and the Round Table movement. It was these organizations that laid the foundations for the modern global world, which is essentially a disguised form of the new British Empire. Links to John Daniel's book are provided below this video.